Okay, now we're getting into division properties of exponents. We talked about multiplication properties. We talked about power of the power properties. When we do multiplication, and this kind of goes with multiplication, if we had, like x squared times x to the fourth, we knew that we added those. 2 plus 4, right? Gave us x to the sixth. So I always like to think, what's the opposite of multiplication? Well, division, or the inverse of it. So all we're doing with division, and I have a couple examples here, but I'm only going to focus on one, is we take the top exponent and we subtract the bottom exponent, as long as the bases are the same, right? Because it's kind of like terms. A visual example of how this looks, 6 minus 2 equals 4, but if I have 6 5s up here and I have 2 on the bottom, these cancel out with these, leaving me with 4 on the top, right? But we can just think of it as the top number minus the bottom number. And this will help us out, especially with when these are negatives to begin with. We'll just do the subtraction first, and then we'll switch them to positive exponents at the end. But you can look at this example right here. I have x to the 12th times y to the 3rd divided by x to the 10th divided by y to the 6th. Well, these x's are the same base, so I can do 12 minus 10. So x to the 12 minus 10 is 2. And here we have 3 minus 6. So y to the 3 minus 6 would be negative 3. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to make them all positive. So x squared on the top and a y to the 3rd on the bottom. So that goes to the bottom and becomes positive. I did teach like both ways to do that before, but I'm just going to focus on take the top number, subtract the bottom number as far as those exponents goes. And that's pretty much all you need to do to be able to divide powers. So if I look at this, 4 minus 9, right? So take out, you just use a basic calculator. You can use your decimals calculator, especially with working with negative numbers. I want you to be sure that you're doing the math correctly. It's always the top one minus the bottom one. So again, if I look at A, I know that it's going to be B is my base, and then 4 minus 9. So we just do 4 minus 9. And that gives us negative 5. So that's B to the negative 5th power. And then we would make that positive by moving it to the bottom. So this would be 1 over B to the 5th. You can think about 4 of these, cancel out with 4 of these, leaving us with 5 left on the bottom. But again, for consistency's sake, I'm going to do the subtraction. Over here, we know our base is going to be Z, because that's the same. 10 minus 5, obviously we know what 10 minus 5 is. That gives us 5. So Z to the 5th. And we don't need to simplify that any further because it's a positive exponent. For this example, now I have 2 bases. I have a base of A, so let's do this. 2 minus 4. So we take always the top number minus the bottom number. 2 minus 4, we get negative 2. All right, now I have a base of B here, so I have to do these B's. So I have B, and I have to subtract the top to the bottom. Remember, if you don't see one, there's a 1. So what is 1 minus 3? That is negative 2. And then we would move both of these to the bottom of a fraction and make them positive. A squared, B squared, put the 1 on the top. All right, so it's just the subtraction piece from the top to the bottom as long as they have the same base. Now looking at this again, it could look like a jumbled mess, and let's go ahead and get our calculator handy for these problems because we're subtracting and adding if we need to. But I have the 2 bases. I have a base of M, so I can say M, and then negative 1. So now I'm dealing with negative numbers. So again, literally just subtracting each time. Negative 1 minus 3, and that gives us negative 4. So this would be M to the negative 4. And then we have 2. Remember, there's a 1 there, right? So this would be N. 2 minus 1 is just 1. Again, we have a negative exponent that is attached to that M, so that's going to go on the bottom and become positive. And the N remains on the top. Right? So in this one, again, there's a little 1 there. Don't forget that 1. So now we know we can take 2 minus 1 for that x, right? So we have the x, 2 minus 1 is 1. Here's our y's. Y to the negative 1, y to the 4th. Negative 1 minus 4. That gives us negative 5. So y to the negative 5. We know that's going to be moving in a second. And then we have z, 4 minus a negative 3. Here's where you don't want to get lazy, right? 4 minus a negative 3. That gives us a positive 7. If we don't put that first negative in there, it will give us the wrong answer. The y to the negative 5 goes to the bottom. The x and the z stay at the top. So my final answer would be x, z to the 7th. You can put the 1 there if you want. You don't have to. And on the bottom, y to the the positive 5th power. Of course, we moved it, so it has to become positive. So that is how we divide the exponents, right? Multiply, we add them. Dividing them, we subtract. And remember, it's the top minus the bottom exponent.